Hello and welcome. You're listening to Pure Light, where we explore how you can believe in yourself and be happy with who you are by learning to question your doubts and trust your worth. A lot of people get stuck because they get in their own way and then they hate themselves for it. I can help you stop doing that so that you can get what you want. My name is Ailey. I'm a coach and a Kundalini yoga and meditation teacher. This is episode 27, and it's about trying to impress people. I've been working on my book and digging into some of the stories from my past about the search for approval and validation and all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to share one here. Before we get to that, I also did an episode about trying to project a certain image a while back. So if you want to dig into this topic a little bit more, I'll put that the link to that in the show notes so that you can listen to that one as well. And for the story for today and the trying to impress piece, when I was in school, so when I was in engineering, I think I've mentioned this before, but I was in a hard program. So when we first got there, I think in the first week, like during Frosh Week or orientation, when we were sitting in one of the lecture rooms, they said to us, look to your left, look to your right, only one of you is going to be here like next year or something like that. So I think they kicked out 50% of the people in the first year or two, or it was some ridiculous statistic like that. And so they instilled a lot of fear in the students who were there, or at least in me. I was constantly afraid of being kicked out. And there was a huge sense of stress that went along with that because it was so competitive and I really didn't want to fail. And one of the things that happened while I was in school is there was this friend of my parents who, whenever I saw him, he would come up to me and ask me, have they kicked you out yet? And would laugh. And this wasn't someone I saw all that often, maybe a couple times a year. So like things like Christmas and, large gatherings. And when he would come and ask me that, like I would just be like, oh my God, there's no way I'm going to let that happen. And in terms of my response to him, I would smile and I would say no. So no, they haven't kicked me out yet. And even though I really didn't feel like smiling because I was so stressed out and so in really deep fear about making it through. And I mean, I somehow managed to get through it all. And I'm really grateful that I did because a lot of great things came out of that, even though it was really, really tough to be in the process. But looking back on this story and this friend of my parents asking me that question, have they kicked you out yet? Like this was ultimately a way of me trying to prove my worth to someone else. Even though that person wasn't really all that important in my life, and even though their opinion of me in the grand scheme of things didn't really matter, it was mostly my ego that was reacting strongly to this guy and leading to like the anger and stress and resentment that I would feel whenever he asked me that question. Because I felt like he was basically saying, like, are you good enough to be there? Are you smart enough? Can you hack it? And I think he may have actually gotten kicked out of this program himself. Like, I'm not 100% sure of that, but I remember hearing something along those lines at one point. And anyway, I think that maybe the fact that I was in there and succeeding probably triggered some insecurity on his part. And then that in turn would lead to him asking me that question and then trigger my insecurity. Because whenever he asked me that question, I would feel like, oh my God, am I good enough to be there? And here's the thing about all of this. Like when you seek approval from others, you usually lose your own. And here's why. When you're trying to impress others, it means that you're ultimately trying to control their opinion of you in some way. By showing them aspects of yourself that you think that they'll like, or by showing them that you're succeeding at something that you think will impress them, which means that you're valuing what they perceive over what you experience. So it's more important for things to look a certain way than it is for them to feel a certain way, which means that other people's opinions are more important to you than your own emotional well-being. And I mean, of course, I'm speaking from experience here. And the thing to remember is your reputation isn't something you have control over because it only exists in other people's minds. If you have a crowd of 10 people, you'll have 10 different reputations. If you have 100, you'll have 100. That's how it is. There isn't one single reputation that you have because it exists in each individual's mind. And Your reputation is ultimately based on people's opinion of you, and it's not on your own opinion. And sometimes it's not even based on accurate data about you. So it's something that you really have no control over. You only have control over your actions and your own perspective on things, and ultimately your own emotional well-being. So just to recap, when you are looking to impress someone else, it could come at a much greater cost to you than you realize when you're trying to do it. It could really cost you your emotional well-being. If you enjoyed this, subscribe wherever you're listening and leave a review. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, may you be guided by your light.